Good evening and welcome to another Concord and Victory interview. We're Tia and Alisa from Stowe, and we're really pleased to introduce the third installment of our five-part personal finance series, welcoming back Paul from Chartered Financial Planner at Succession Wealth. Over the last two sessions, Paul has guided us through thinking about our future finances and how we navigate the move from school into the wider world. Tonight, we're taking things a step further as we look at the idea of risk, from the everyday decisions we make with money to the bigger questions about how we protect ourselves when life surprises us.
As we've learned, everyone sees risk differently, and it's interesting to notice how our own instincts influence the choices we make. We're looking forward to exploring that with you this evening. Before we begin, a few of our questions this evening have a festive twist because this time of year can really challenge how people think about risk and spending. Thank you again for joining us, Paul. Before we dive into our questions, could we start with a quick set of definitions? When we talk about financial risk, risk tolerance, short-term debt, and compound interest, what do these ideas actually mean?
Good evening, ladies. Financial risk has a really broad meaning, from market instability, lending risk, investments, borrowing, interest rate rises, and even something like gambling. Essentially, it is the risk of losing money or needing to pay out more money than expected. For both individuals and companies, this can cause stress and potential financial issues. Tolerance for risk refers to how you are affected by a potential loss. Would this cause severe financial issues, or would you be able to cope with the consequences of losing money? And is the answer different if the loss is short, medium, long-term, or permanent? Short-term debt usually refers to a financial obligation that must be paid off within a year. Compound interest, according to Albert Einstein, is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Essentially, it is interest you earn on interest. If you have savings in a bank and they pay annual interest, leave your savings in that bank untouched, and the following year you will receive interest not only on your original savings, but also on the interest that was added at the end of the first year. This can make a big difference to long-term returns. So hopefully that gives a little context for those terms.
Thank you. Around Christmas, people often feel pressure to spend more than usual. From your experience, how do attitudes to financial risk shift during festive seasons?
In some cases, it appears that people choose to ignore all the usual warning signs that they're spending more money than they should over Christmas. It seems that, for some, the social pressures to buy things for loved ones is such that they spend more money than they should and then face the consequences in January. This is one of the reasons for Blue Monday. Typically, this is the third Monday in January, and it is seen as the most depressing day of the year. This feeling includes post-holiday blues, bad weather, long dark nights, low motivation levels, and debt levels. Maybe because of Christmas spending exceeded what was affordable. This can be a difficult one for young people, but I suspect few people who love you would expect you to get into financial trouble just so they can have an expensive gift at Christmas.
When someone is trying to judge whether a decision is low, medium, or high risk, how can they apply that kind of thinking to seasonal spending like gifts, travel, or hosting events?
This question potentially gets us back to our old friend budgeting. If you have budgeted the whole year so that you have extra funds available for you to spend in December, then you need to consider how much each decision will deplete those extra funds that you've accumulated. If the likely expenditure is well within what spending you've allowed for, it'll be low risk. However, if you didn't budget at all, or if the proposed spending is well beyond what you've allowed for, then this is likely to become higher risk. And if you don't have the money to pay for that gift or activity without having to borrow the money from somewhere else or from someone else. Do you also consider the borrowing cost? When added to the original cost, And if you do, does that still make it something that you want to spend your money on? I think if you even asking this question of yourself, you are less likely to allow your spending to go completely out of control over Christmas.
A lot of young people feel that they have to meet certain expectations at Christmas, even when money is tight. What would you say to someone who feels pressure to spend beyond their means just to keep up?
This is a difficult one. I would suggest that they have conversations with the people who they feel pressure to buy for. Culturally, we seem to be bad at having financial discussions with family and friends. We inherently think this is private. This reluctance to talk about money with loved ones can be the root of financial difficulties that could easily be avoided. Peer pressure can be a hard thing to deal with, but this should not be an issue between you and your loved ones if you're honest with them. So I would really urge you to have those conversations, and you will find, I am sure, that your loved ones do not want you to go into financial problems just to provide a present for them.
Unexpected costs seem to appear more often at this time of year, whether it's broken phones, travel issues, or last-minute emergencies. How should people work out whether insurance or protection is actually worth it for them?
Insurance is about trying to prevent financial risk, something we talked about right at the start. Is the financial risk to you of something happening more severe than the cost of the insurance if it doesn't happen? When you're taking on a new liability, like a phone contract, what would happen if you broke the phone with no insurance in place to replace it? Do you have sufficient emergency funds to get a replacement? Or would life become really difficult for you? Can you afford the insurance premium in addition to the cost of the phone plan? And are you happy to pay this for peace of mind, even if you never break your phone? You will know this if you've prepared a budget for yourself. Many goods and services offer insurance these days, and whether you decide to take out the insurance for any item should, in my opinion, be about how serious the consequences are to you should the worst happen.
Sometimes small decisions, like choosing between an expensive Christmas deal or a cheaper alternative, reveal bigger patterns in how someone approaches risk. What sort of choices do you think give people the clearest insight into their own habits?
This is a great question, and one that really made me think about how I could possibly answer it. Is your example about risk, or is it about value for money? Are they both a different way of looking at the same thing? And I think they are. Do you think that getting a cheaper alternative that might need to be replaced sooner than the more expensive alternative be more or less risky? Will you be responsible for replacing the item in the future if it does break? What about the immediate risk? Is the extra cost of the more expensive deal likely to cause you to incur a debt that will make the item even more expensive and therefore less value for money or higher risk? I think you can get an insight into your habits by how you go about making these types of decisions. Are you impulsive and give little thought to the consequences of what you buy? You like it, so you buy it. Or do you consider the pros and cons of each alternative and weigh up which is the best option for you? You might not always get the best answer, but you're more likely to make better decisions if you consider the consequences rather than being impulsive.
Many families borrow money to fund Christmas. What questions should someone ask themselves before taking on debt for the festive spending?
What is the cost associated with borrowing this money, and can I afford to pay it back? Taking on debt can be easy with so many options available, but not paying it back can have really serious long-term implications for your future. If you don't pay back loans as agreed, lenders will be reluctant to lend to you again, and those that are prepared to lend to you will charge you higher interest. Another question is whether that expense is completely necessary. Is it something that you really need, or something that it would be nice to have if affordable? The latest PlayStation game isn't really needed, but if you're into gaming, then it's nice to have. But is it worth going into debt to buy? That's the big question.
Lots of people find it hard to say no to high cost plans at this time of year. How can young people feel more confident setting financial boundaries without feeling like they're missing out?
Businesses love to make people think that you need their product, no matter what the cost, because then they make more profits. A profitable company can potentially pay its staff and shareholders more money. Making people feel like they're missing out by not having their product is a golden ticket for that company to print money. If you have a clear idea of what you can afford, because you've set a budget, and what you need, it is easier to make that better decision. A classic example of this is people overindulging over Christmas, and they make a New Year's resolution to get fit, and they join a gym with monthly fees. They continue to pay those monthly fees, even if they've only visited the gym once in January and haven't been back since. If you've considered the cost benefits of joining a gym, would you be more inclined to use the facilities to get value for your money? If you know you can't really afford the gym membership, but there are other cheaper ways to achieve your objective that you could commit to, is that not a better option without you feeling that you're missing out on getting fit? Experience is not something that you get quickly. So if you're struggling as a young person to set financial boundaries or make financial decisions, ask someone who's likely to have some of that experience. Whether that's a parent, grandparent, uncle, aunt, teacher, financial advisor, or someone who's older than you, who you trust, and is likely to have come across these issues themselves when they were younger.
If someone wants to be more resilient when unexpected costs crop up, what simple habits could they start building, even during the festive season?
Having an emergency fund available to you all year round is important, but maybe in the build up to Christmas, it might be worth adding a little extra to this fund, as unexpected extra costs always seem to crop up over the festive season. You will then need to be really disciplined in rebuilding that fund in the new year. If you have an access to a credit card, it's really easy to think that you can just use this to cover these extra costs. But if you've been unable to save any emergency funds before Christmas, how are you going to find sufficient spare income to repay your credit card bill in the new year? Getting yourself into debt you will struggle to repay is not the best way to resolve this situation. So I would say building up that emergency fund well in advance of Christmas is far better than just sticking it on a credit card and hoping for the best.
Some people prefer to rely on savings rather than taking out insurance. What safeguards or habits should they have in place, especially during a season when spending can easily escalate?
Some people feel that the risk is too small to warrant paying the cost of insurance, or they have enough savings to pay for any damages or repairs, or they plan to put money aside each month that they'll use to cover any losses, damages, or replacements. This is known as self-insuring. This can be a really useful option and can save you money, especially if the risk never happens. But it can also be financially dangerous. Let's consider an example. I have a dog called Ozzy. He's here with me now. It costs just over £25 a month to insure him to cover possible vet's bills. He's almost 2.5 now, and thankfully nothing serious has happened to him. So you could say that I've wasted £750 in insurance for him. However, vet costs can be very high, and even now, when he's young and healthy, if he has an accident and needs treatment that costs around £1,000, that insurance that I've been paying is already covered itself. But what if the vet cost is over £5,000? Well, then self-insurance would have been a very costly alternative, because now I've got to find that from savings or somewhere else. So it's all about what the potential consequences are, as far as I'm concerned. Low cost items or lower cost services, maybe you can self-insure a lot easier than you can for something that might have very big financial consequences.
As we move towards the new year, what is one practical step that could help people enjoy Christmas without starting January with unnecessary debt?
The only practical step I can think of is not spending beyond your means. If you haven't already saved money throughout the year for Christmas, don't go mad and spend lots of money you don't have. You'll have to pay that money back, and if you borrow it, you could be paying a lot of interest on that money until you pay it back. A typical student credit card charges around 30% interest. So if you borrow £1,000, you will pay back around £300 a year in interest. If you only make the minimum payment each month, because that's all you can afford, it will take a very long time to repay that loan, and you will pay a significant amount of interest. Typically in the UK, you need to pay back 2% of your outstanding credit card balance plus the interest on that payment. Therefore, if you borrowed £1,000, your minimum monthly payment is £26, and if you have that 30% interest rate. Over the first year, you'll pay back just over £300, but you will have had £300 of interest added. So you've almost still got the original £1,000 outstanding. So you've got nowhere. By then, it's Christmas again, and the problem could double if you spend another £1,000 next Christmas. If you only spend what you know you can afford, better still what you've already saved to spend, then your new year can start without any new financial worries.
Paul, thank you so much for joining us again, for hearing us explore how risks play out in real life, especially during a season where money decisions can feel more pressured than usual. We'll be back on the 8th of January to welcome the new year with our next interview, where we'll be looking into loans and mortgages. Thank you again for joining us.
You're very welcome, and happy Christmas all.